That short stack you ordered at IHOP last week, if you'd ordered the same plate back in 2020, you'd have paid 82% less for it. Not for a fancier version. The same pancakes, the same syrup, the same yellow roof. That's the steepest price climb of any major breakfast chain in the country, and it happened while the actual cost of eggs and flour went up nowhere close to that fast. Here's the receipt behind the number. A study of 16 major restaurant chains found menu prices climbed an average of 39% between 2020 and 2025, nearly double the 22% national inflation rate over the same stretch. That's not restaurants passing along higher costs. That's restaurants using inflation as cover to pad the margin, a practice the industry itself has a term for: menu engineering. It's the quiet science of repricing and repositioning items to squeeze more profit out of every plate, whether or not the ingredient cost actually justifies it. Here's the thing, I'm going to show you 3 breakfast chains that are actually worth what they charge, including one that's been run by the same family since 1955 and has raised prices less than any of its competitors. So today we're walking through 5 breakfast chains that are quietly robbing you blind, and 3 that have earned your loyalty. If you're tired of being nickel and dimed every time you sit down for eggs, hit subscribe. You're going to want to share this one. So what does worth it even mean for a breakfast chain? It's not complicated. Did the price you paid go up because the food, the service, or the portion actually got better? Or did it go up just because the company figured out you'd keep coming anyway? Here's why the gap exists. Wholesale egg and flour prices are volatile, but they don't move in a straight line upward the way menu prices have. When a chain raises prices 35, 50, 80% over 5 years while ingredient costs bounce around far less dramatically, the difference isn't going into your eggs. It's going into the company's margin, or in a lot of these cases, straight into paying down debt from a private equity buyout. And here's the tell to watch for. When a family restaurant chain's headquarters or ownership has changed hands 2 or 3 times since you started eating there, the name on the sign and the company actually running it usually aren't the same relationship they were when you first fell in love with the place. Before we start naming names, remember one thing. A menu price increase by itself isn't proof of anything. It's the pattern. Price hikes stacked on top of shrinking locations, stacked on top of documented wage violations. That tells you which chains are actually taking you for a ride. Skip number 5, Cracker Barrel number 5. Cracker Barrel, the rocking chairs, the gift shop, the peg game on every table. It's about as comforting as breakfast gets. Look at the numbers though. Menu prices are up roughly 35% since 2020. And that's before you count the additional price hikes the company layered on top. 1.5% in fiscal 2024. Another 3.4% in fiscal 2025. And here's the real kicker. Even with all those increases, the company's net income fell from $99 million in 2023 to just $40.9 million in 2024. Prices went up, profit went down. That's not a company passing along costs. That's a company that's losing money for reasons that have nothing to do with your bill and passing the difference to you anyway. There's no lawsuit attached here, and I'm not going to manufacture one. What makes this particularly frustrating is that the receipts are sitting right there in the company's own earnings reports. And if you thought that was bad, and the next one has the steepest price climb of any major chain in the country. Or skip number 4, IHOP number 4. IHOP, the one from the hook, the 82% one. That figure comes from a study tracking the top 10 menu items at 16 major chains between 2020 and 2025, and IHOP topped every single one of them. Look at the trend line, and it's not subtle. This is the steepest price climb in the entire casual breakfast category, where the chain has simultaneously been closing underperforming locations. And get this, in June 2024, the U.S. Department of Labor filed a formal complaint alleging that an IHOP franchise operator running locations in O'Fallon and Alton, Illinois, violated federal minimum wage, overtime, and record-keeping law. To be precise, because precision matters, that complaint names a franchise operator, not IHOP's parent company, Dine Brands, directly. But it's still happening under the IHOP name on an IHOP sign to IHOP employees. If this is already saving you from a bad shop, do me a favor and hit subscribe. We publish one of these every week, and if you thought that was bad, number 3 didn't just raise prices, the whole company got sold off. Skip number 3, Denny's number 3. Denny's, open 24 hours, a fixture of highway exits and late night cravings for 70 years. Look at the receipt. Menu prices are up roughly 36% since 2020. Over the same stretch, the company closed around 150 underperforming locations by the end of 2025. And then, on January 16th of this year, Danny's Corporation completed a $620 million sale, taken private by a group of investment firms after 29 years as a publicly traded company. What makes this particularly worth knowing is the sequence. Prices went up, stores closed, and then the whole company changed hands to new owners whose stated plan is to invest in the brand. Used, which is corporate language for figuring out how to extract more value from the exact same restaurants you've been paying more for. And if you thought that was bad, number 2 still has the founder's name on the sign, even though he's had nothing to do with it in years. Skip number 2. A Bob Evans number 2. Bob Evans, founded by an actual farmer named Bob Evans in Rio Grande, Ohio, in 1948. The farm fresh identity used to mean something specific and real. Here's the real kicker. In 2017, the restaurant side of the business was sold off to a private equity firm, Golden Gate Capital, for $565 million. Since then, the number of Bob Evans restaurants has shrunk from 522 locations down to roughly 420. And in February of this year, Golden Gate sold the chain again, this time to another private equity firm, 4x4 Capital. What you're eating under that name today has been through 2 ownership flips by financial firms in under a decade, each one looking for a way to extract value before selling to the next buyer. The heritage on the sign and the company actually running the kitchen are 2 very different things now. And if you thought that was bad, number 1 didn't just raise prices. A court made them pay their own employees back. Skip number 1. Golden Corral number 1. Golden Corral, the all-you-can-eat buffet that's been a value play for generations of families. Here's the receipt, and it's the heaviest one on this list. In 2018, Golden Corral Corporation, the parent company itself, not a franchisee, settled a federal wage lawsuit for $3.9 million after assistant managers alleged they were denied overtime pay during mandatory company training, sometimes working 50 to 70 hours a week without it. Bottom line, and that wasn't a one-time thing. A second separate case against several Golden Corral franchise locations and their owner, alleging workers were pressured to underreport the hours they actually worked, advanced through federal court in August 2025 and reached a settlement by December. When a company gets caught underpaying the people cooking your food twice in 2 different decades, that's not a scheduling glitch. That's a business model. All right, pause me. Pull up your banking app or your email and find the last receipt from your go-to breakfast chain. I'll wait. Got it? Now add up what a dozen eggs, a pack of bacon, and a loaf of bread actually costs at the grocery store this week. You probably already know the number or can guess it within $1 or $2. Divide your restaurant bill by that grocery number. Here's the test. A markup of 2 to 3 times the raw ingredient cost is normal. That covers labor, rent, and the fact that somebody else is doing the cooking and the dishes. A markup of 5, 6, 7 times on a chain that's also raised prices 30+% since 2020 and quietly shrunk its locations. That's not a diner covering its costs. That's a diner betting you won't do the math. Now, if you've made it this far, here's the payoff. 3 breakfast chains that are actually what they claim to be, and one of them has raised its prices less than any major competitor in the entire category. Real number 3, the original Pancake House. Let's start with the one that stayed the most stubbornly old-fashioned. Founded in 1953 in Portland, Oregon by Les Hayet and Irma Huenecke, who spent years collecting authentic pancake recipes from around the world before opening their first location. Why it stayed real? It's still a network of individually family-owned franchises rather than one corporate parent flipping the whole chain to private equity every few years. There's no single owner to sell off because there's no single owner to begin with. Here's the proof you can verify. The batters are made from scratch daily using 93 score butter, grade A 8 eggs, and a sourdough starter grown in-house. No mixes, no shortcuts. The original Portland location earned a James Beard Foundation America's Classic Award in 1999, a recognition reserved for restaurants with a lasting, authentic identity. What real people say, longtime regulars describe the apple pancake and Dutch baby as tasting essentially unchanged from decades ago. The kind of consistency that's rare once a chain changes hands. Where to get it? Over 100 locations nationwide, each independently owned. Look for the name on a freestanding building, not a strip mall storefront. Real number 2, First Watch number 2. First Watch, founded in 1983 in Pacific Grove, California, by Ken Pendry and John Sullivan, two restaurant industry veterans who wanted mornings built around genuinely fresh food instead of speed. Why it stayed real: there are no microwaves, heat lamps, or deep fryers in any First Watch kitchen. Every dish is made to order, and the menu rotates seasonally to track what's actually fresh, rather than running the same frozen inventory year-round. Here's the proof you can verify. In a Consumer Reports survey of 150,000 readers, First Watch was ranked the best breakfast chain in the country, rating highest not just in taste, but specifically in value, meaning readers felt the price matched what they got on the plate. What real people say: customers switching over from a mass market chain often mention being surprised the eggs and produce actually taste like something, instead of tasting like nothing in particular. Where to get it? Over 600 locations across 32 states, open daytime hours only, 7 a.m. to 2:30 every day. And if this ranking is useful, hit the like button. It really helps the channel cut through the algorithm. Real number one, Waffle House, and number one, Waffle House. This one goes back to Labor Day weekend, 1955, when two neighbors in Avondale Estates, Georgia, Joe Rager Sr. and Tom Fortner, opened a 24-hour restaurant for the people in their own community. Why it stayed real: it's still privately held by the Rogers family today, never publicly traded, never answerable to Wall Street analysts demanding a bigger quarterly number. That's not a small thing. It's the entire reason the next number works the way it does. Here's the proof you can verify. In that same 16-chain pricing study, Waffle House's menu prices rose 32.7% since 2020. The smallest increase of the four major chains studied, and less than half of IHOP's 82%. The company also runs an employee stock ownership plan, meaning the people cooking your hash browns actually hold a stake in the business. What real people say: Waffle House is reliable enough that FEMA informally tracks store closures as a real-time signal of how bad a hurricane or storm actually is. If the Waffle House near you is closed, emergency management takes that seriously. That's not a marketing claim. That's the federal government treating consistency as data. Where to get it? Over 2,000 locations, mostly in the Southeast, open every single day of the year, 24 hours. Here's the one thing worth remembering tonight. A menu price increase isn't a scandal by itself, but a price increase stacked on shrinking locations, stacked on a company getting flipped by private equity or getting sued by its own employees. That's a pattern, and patterns tell you where your money's actually going. The worst of today's list is Golden Corral, with a documented $3.9 million wage settlement and a second wage case right behind it. The best is Waffle House, the smallest price increase of any major chain, and still family-owned 70 years later. So here's your one move before your next breakfast out. Do the receipt math once. If your go-to chain is charging 5 or 6 times the grocery costs of what's actually on the plate, that's your sign to try one of tonight's 3 instead. Next week, we're taking on grocery store rotisserie chicken, and one popular brand has been quietly shrinking the bird while keeping the price exactly the same. Draw up the chain you still trust in the comments. We're building the list together. Hit subscribe if this changed how you spend your breakfast money. We'll see you in the next aisle.